In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to achieve huge bases at high quality super fast that survive a life of gaming. In today's tutorial, we are painting this bad boy and a couple of other variations. So this is a high quality gaming base. I've used airbrushing, dry brushing and washing in kind of an efficient order to try and achieve a really high quality result pretty fast. We've also got a couple of steps of varnish in there, and the reason for that is it is going to be a gaming piece. I'm looking to protect that Agrellan earth and kind of everything that is there, the cork which can potentially crumble as well, to ensure a long gaming life. There is another variation of the base which if you stick around till the end you'll see in time lapse. That's one under this bad boy. He's so chunky that he's kind of covering everything up. There we go, you can see that effect there. But both of them are super effective, really fun. I have loads of fun with the Tufts. I always love doing the Tufts. And yeah, that's it. So if you like the tutorial, please give it a like, please comment, please subscribe. Put any suggestions or questions or queries down below. We will absolutely answer them as soon as possible.
Okay, so here we have our blank base. This is just cork in 3 layers that has been coated with a fairly thick layer of Agrellan earth. If you want to see more about getting the most out of the texture paints, do check out our other videos. I use them quite a lot and I really do rate them for achieving a high level of paint job pretty fast. And the most important thing to know about this step is I've hit this with 3 coats of Monitorum varnish. I think that's entirely essential when dealing with these paints. It stops these from crumbling. And as you can see here, I didn't hit it with them previously. So those are going to have to get covered up with tufts or kind of misdirection or some other painting technique, because this is what happens if you don't protect them. And please use a spray varnish rather than PVA or anything else water-based, because it just, the moment you start putting paints on it, you run the risk of reawakening whatever you've used to seal it to your model and then tearing all the bits off. What I'm going to do is, using angles very carefully, I'm going to aim it exactly horizontal at this piece, and then hopefully you should be able to see how easy it is to simply just catch the edges. Now, it may look like I'm coating the entire thing from this angle, but hopefully when I reveal it from above, you'll see just how good this is. Now obviously we are painting a 3-dimensional surface, so you're going to need to tilt this around quite a lot to get all the chunks if you're using something like cork, but we have 0 overspray there. We've just hit the edges. So what I'm going to be doing is going all the way around the model doing this, and then I'll be doing some more specific stuff kind of on the top, around the top edges, to achieve our overall kind of finished effect that we're aiming for. So hopefully you can see how well I've done hitting the edges there. What I'm going to be doing now is going in kind of at a more 45-degree angle closer and catching any bits that I couldn't hit with the previous technique. So keeping it pretty close, trying not to overspray too much, but not worrying about it too much if I do. I'm going to do this, and basically I'm trying to make sure that every single bit of cork gets hidden. Having kind of filled in all of these edges of the cork, what we're going to be doing is going towards the edges from above. They are fairly diluted black, and just putting down a nice natural looking fade. So I just want things to get darker towards the edges. Okay, now this step is optional. What I'm going to be doing is I've got you can put any light paint in your airbrush here. I've just got AK's Ivory because I had it to hand. And what I'm going to be doing is adding some visual interest in the form of contrast to the top of our model. And I'm going to be concentrating on the areas where we've got larger cracks of Agrellan earth. Now, if in your black step you did make any mistakes or cover any areas that you don't want to be covered, or you just want to kind of pick things up, you can do the opposite of the black stage we did. So choosing a 90-degree different angle, so rather going from the side, going straight from above, we can choose to hit the tops of those steps. Quite often with this type of stuff, when you are putting down a pre-shade, especially with something that's meant to be organic, basing in miniature being kind of like the absolute top of that list, generally speaking, I think there sometimes is a benefit to being really unsubtle and doing stuff super in your face, super bright, super contrasty, because whatever you do, it's going to get muted in the next step anyway. And making sure with some of these brighter steps, take them right towards the edge of the base, because one of my pet hates is when bases fade naturally towards the edge of the base. You're meant to be taking it's like you've taken a cookie cutter out of real life, and you wouldn't fade towards the edge of the base. You'd fade towards the edge of a stone or something else like that, organic. But if you've got stuff like this going on bases, do make sure to take it towards the very edge in a couple of situations, just because it's going to end up looking far more realistic. Okay, so we've got calamari orange. Had to check that one there. I've used this paint a lot. It's got really good coverage. It's from scale 75, and I've diluted it quite a lot in my airbrush. So what we're going to be doing here is using our pre-shading to make some brighter areas, but the entirety of the model pretty much is going to be hit apart from those edges. So doing our airbrushing from above, we should manage to pretty much just kind of coat all of this without hitting the sides too much. And the areas that we've made brighter with that white should end up being brighter overall. So nothing delicate here. Our delicacy is kind of done by diluting our paint appropriately. And we're just using the airbrush as a fast base coating tool. And the fact that we can thin it down means that we can get these slightly less kind of opaque paint. And that's really useful in terms of what we're doing here. Okay, so here's one more just to show you start to finish. Okay, so for the detailing, we're going to begin with a wash. Now grab your biggest brush, some black paint. You can mix anything into this you like. You can mix a bit of the orange that we've used or kind of whatever color you've got going on your basing. I'm just using water to dilute it. You could put a bit of medium in there if you wanted though. And I'm using a size 5 here. This is one of our huge brushes, although if you've got a size 6 to hand, that is obviously better because we're trying to do a lot of work as fast as possible. And then what I'm going to be doing is washing the entire thing. So hopefully you can see how much of a difference this makes to areas with the cracks. And they're the areas that I'm particularly interested in hitting the most because they're where we've got our potential for the largest degree of contrast. I'm going to be hitting all of the edges. This should help catch any bits that we've missed. And then kind of using water liberally, I'm going to use that to control how much of the bright base coat I cover over, because I do want to keep quite a lot of it. So if I use a stronger part here, you can see that's really, really black. I can jump in with pure water and kind of dilute that, push that around, put it elsewhere, and control it to my heart's content. So as big a brush as possible, work as fast as possible, and it'll all go super quick. This is an amazing situation to show capillary action at work. Right, let's go. Look at that. All these areas, especially with a large brush and plenty of dilution on the go, you can do wonders so quick. Okay, so with our base fully dried, and do definitely allow it to fully dry, otherwise you'll have a kind of a weaker surface, it is time to move on to the dry brushing. So I'm using an extra large here, it's one of our big boys, and I've got Kalahari Orange, and then I've got Screaming Skull. You may not see this affecting things hugely, but you are laying a foundation to allow yourself to dry brush lighter with your next step. Okay, so at this stage, having taken most of the Kalahari off my brush, what I'm doing, just by dry brushing that is, not removing it on purpose, what I'm doing is I'm going back to my dampening pad, and then I'm adding in the Screaming Skull. And hopefully what I should be doing here is gently and naturally stepping up to, see I'm buffing here, I'm not using any particular direction, that's because these have got edges in every direction, also they'd be lit from above. I'm not trying to go for some, like, I don't know, sunset angle or something like that. Just universal buffed highlights. I'm trying to work the paint off easily, and by adding water and using the dampening pad, I'm doing that just kind of passively as I go, and it's going to help our brush not get overly saturated, and also it'll help leave, have all of this Kalahari kind of get worked out more and more as we're doing basically a hybrid between dry brushing and cleaning our dry brush. Once you got through to the stage where most of it's been removed, you'll be in a spot where you can do, particularly given the contrast between Screaming Skull and Kalahari being two very, very different colors with really light applications. Back to my dampening pad again, get a little bit more Screaming Skull. With really light applications, you should be able to pretty drastically affect the area in question with pretty much zero pressure. You can see how loosely I'm holding that brush there. Look at that texture. Now, as I hinted at the beginning, one of the lovely things about doing bases like this is that you can hide your mistakes with whatever you like, whether that's weathering or tufts or details. So little areas where my stuff has flaked off, my grell and earth, my texture paint, I'm going to be covering with tufts. Now I'm going to be using kind of a middle greenish tuft on this, even if that doesn't look particularly realistic in the environment. I'm choosing it for contrast. But what I would recommend is if you are going for realism, just follow one simple principle, and that is you can put greener, more kind of happy, flourishing looking tufts, plants, greenery, whatever it is, more in the recesses. And as you get away from the recesses where there be less moisture, less shelter, use drier stuff, and that will instantly make your whatever it is you're painting look way more realistic. Okay, now I've stopped halfway through doing the tufts, and the reason for this is I might want to be hiding some of these areas instead of with tufts with my model's feet, and also I want to put my black rim down before I put more tufts around the edge because they just get in the way a bit. So I'd really recommend that as well. Do bear in mind you are going to be putting a model there, and if you super glue a tuft down, it can actually be pretty dangerous to rip them off because they'll take off the area underneath them. So I'd get to like 50%, get all your edged areas. You can see I've cut my tufts in half to allow them to be backed on more easily, particularly under this area, things looking pretty realistic. And I'll put the miniature on, and then I'll be on kind of hiding mistakes and taking stuff right to the edges once I've done the black rim. Now, when you are painting black rims, one of the things that I kind of really pay attention to and have mentioned throughout this tutorial is making sure that your black rim is a frame that just ends the detail of the base in a very kind of inorganic, we're stopping here manner. So there's a couple of ways to do that. You can do it side on. I'll just make sure that you come right up to the edge of the brush, the edge of the base, sorry, of the brush. I'm using my very sad old abused size 4 for this. He's seen better days. You can do it that way, and that'll make sure that you come right as high as you can, or if you're a bit more confident with a steady hand, you can whack it all the way around kind of lengthways rather than sideways.
Okay, so here is the end result. Super pleased with that. Really, really, really effective. Loads of fun, and you can change around a couple of things. You can change around how heavy the black stage is. After your orange stages, you can put it before, you can put it after, you can do a heavy wash, you can do a lighter wash, you can put a little kind of purple or green shades in the wash. Anything like that whatsoever, it's all up to your personal choice. Also, you can vary the tufts, you can put skulls on. There are so many ways that you could change this before you even change that orange base color. Of course, that could be anything. I'm trying to give you principles here rather than like a recipe that you regimentedly follow. So if you have any questions about how I would approach a certain take on this paint job, then by all means let me know. You can give me like a reference picture or anything like that. And if you have any suggestions for other content that you'd like to see in the future, then please pop that below and we will get to it as soon as possible.